Good morning again. Did you get my text?
Congratulations.
We'll see. I mean, yeah. Yes.
Big hug.
Thank you.
All right. Well, what I wanted to go, Laura, I didn't warn you about this, but what I wanted to do today, after we see what everybody needs, is I wanted to go through a purchase agreement and talk about some really good places for multiple offer strategies. I had a listing that went live on Friday. I don't work with buyers and sellers, but I did it for somebody in referral. And I think this is a lesson learned for me, Laura, just so you know, it's a good thing for me to do this every once in a while because I learned a lot. I got multiple offers and it was fascinating.
Fun, isn't it?
It was fascinating, but it was fascinating a couple different ways. It was fascinating for me to see how many people really needs us. And then it was also fascinating for me that there was some creative things going on that I probably have never talked to you guys about because they're new creative things. So Laura, we have got the advantage of Laura's experience as well. So that's what I wanted to do today. But first, tell me, does anybody have a challenge or something that you need to go over?
Other
Okay.
than the usual, we need houses for our clients challenge.
Well, and Debbie, what do we do to find houses for our clients?
We're gonna do a leprechaun scavenger hunt. That's what
I love it. A leopard
That's what we're gonna do.
a pot of gold. We're finding the pot of gold.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
All right. Well, before we jump into the purchase agreement, everybody tell me their one win from the last week. Because everybody's had wins, I promise you, and I want to hear the wins. So, Aaliyah, what's your win been? If you had to pick one win from the last week, what would it be?
Let me think. Oh, I had an open house.
You had an open house. How did it go?
It was okay. I expected more traffic, but yeah, it was just okay.
Okay. Did you get any leads?
No.
Okay. How can you turn that open house into still a successful lead generation activity for you?
Maybe I could, I don't know. Like, so I called the neighbors last week just to invite them to the open house. Most of them were just like, okay, but yeah.
Did you ask them if they wanted to choose their new neighbors?
No.
On Saturday, we covered open houses and I emailed you guys all an awesome script for calling around for open houses. Aaliyah, has that property pended? Have you went back in and checked?
It should have pended by now. She said she had an offer on it already.
If it has, what could you call those neighbors back and let them know what happened with the house and ask them if they know anybody else in the neighborhood who might be interested in selling?
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
So, we've already pinned that property I called you about for an open house, and we had more buyers than there were houses. So we have more buyers that want to live in the neighborhood. Do you know anybody who might want to move in the neighborhood?
Okay.
Continue the relationship. How'd you feel having the open house? Like a pro?
Yeah, but I think it's getting there.
Awesome. Okay. I love it. All right, Joni, what's your biggest win?
I did my numbers. I went back through, and for these 10 weeks, I have sent out 120 handwritten notes.
Woohoo! Love it. That is 120
Awesome.
people you have made feel special.
Yes, 120.
Love it. All right, Miss Annie, what's your biggest win in the last week?
Probably the opportunities that I've added to my command. So, and starting to do lead gen and starting to get opportunities and things flowing. I think I got a listing, but I think that was last week.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm happy. Trying to reorganize though. And I just wrote 4 handwritten notes.
Okay, that's great. All right, Dan, biggest win in the last week?
I think the biggest win really is getting a lease lead approved for a mortgage.
That is huge. That is absolutely huge. Most people would throw a lease lead as in a trash can and you turn that into money. That's awesome. All right, Armand, biggest win in the last week.
When in the last week. Just keeping on it. I think just getting myself to keep on it even through some of the discouragements. You know, it always helps you if you talk to somebody that's supportive of you when that happens, because they can help you get back on track. If nothing else, you've got some way of venting some of your frustrations. So
Yeah, we all get frustrated, don't we? So Armand, you say staying on track. Are you doing better with your procrastination?
yesterday I did.
Awesome. Okay, there's the big win. I love it. All right, Debbie, your biggest win in the last week.
I'm gonna go with Joni and say it has to do with the last 10 weeks. I've added a lot of opportunities. I've learned yesterday, how to possibly, hopefully try and turn leases into purchases. And I have added about 160 contacts to my database.
Woohoo! 160
probably-
divided by 12. What is that, Debbie?
I don't know off the top of my head. 10, 15, I don't know, 15.
13.333333.
See how close I was? I said 10, 15. I was just.
All right, Joni, while you got that calculator, now multiply that by 5250. That's the average commission out of productivity coaching.
That is $69,999.99. Or
That's
70.
how much money you've added to your database.
Cool. And I've probably got, I don't even know how many hundreds of customers to get transferred over, old customers. So yeah, so I would anticipate if I can stay on track, do what I want to do within the next 3 weeks, I could possibly add, I don't know, maybe I'm going to guess 300, 400 more. I don't know.
I love it. Now, what's your communication plan with them?
It depends on who they are. A lot of people I only met one time. I would not contact. What I do is I send out a text or an email, kind of a hi, remember me. I have a new career. Remember how I helped you in the past with your communication questions and devices. And now I can help you with the other ones. I'm sending a business card, a JPEG of my business card. In case they don't remember me, maybe they'll recognize me. So yeah,
Okay.
so that's what I'm doing. And some of them I'm personally texting from my cell phone. Some of them I'm just contacting through command.
And have
Some
you
of them I'm
identified
calling.
the ones you can call. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it depends on who they are. Yeah.
All right, Jay Hill, what's your biggest win in the last week? You're muted. I can't hear you. Yes, Jay Hill, that's you.
Oh,
You.
hey.
You.
No, I was talking to Tim.
Oh, you're
So,
talking to Tim. Oh, okay.
Well, so I told him I called him back.
Okay.
This is more
Biggest-
important.
Biggest win in the last week.
The biggest win last week was I was trying to think of a good one. I would say mindset instead of limiting my not beliefs, but my my work. Instead of limiting myself to do certain things, it has kind of exceeded that. So that was the biggest win because you know, I got the listings, got them done, got my mind clear, got some things lined up, and then made it work. And they're all sold. When I sold, they're all in progress of being, you know, sold. So limited that belief, and now I'm thinking about the next set of people. So that is the part, the biggest
Right.
win.
Can I put you on
Getting
the
over-
spot for a minute, Jay?
Yeah, cool.
Can you tell, would you feel comfortable telling everybody about your bowling alley experience?
Oh, I had to think about it.
Jay,
I was kind
first of all, Jay said to me yesterday, I saw my future at the bowling alley. And I was not really sure where he was going with that. I'm just saying.
So it's a kind of a long story. So saw a young man kind of resembled me exactly, you know, just younger. And I was sitting in line to get some food. And I sort of was like, what are they over doing? And I was like, it was a real estate event. So I got on the line, needless to say, we left. But I went over and talked to the guy, and he was like, yeah, I'm a real estate agent. I'm powered by Keller Williams. I started my company. He had 4 women with him, 4 other agents, actual brokers, and they were all in this thing together. And, he was like, this is my team. We all work together. This is what we're doing. And I've been successful. And he was giving a thank you banquet or thank you bowling experience to his past clients. And I was like, that is awesome. And he actually had fees to give out. And I was like, well, daggone, that's what I want. So he had the pamphlets.
What is it? Tell them what it is. It's a buyer's packet, seller's packet.
This is to buy. This is the seller home. This is the buyer home.
And then they had to invest in real estate, right?
Mm-hmm. So it was just like, I was like, man, that's what I want to do. So I went over and talked to him. He was like, I don't mind sharing the knowledge and how I did it and all that stuff, kind of stuff. And I was like, well, man, this is what I've been kind of wanting to see how it looks like. And I was like, well, I got a twin that's younger than me. That's already doing what I want to do. So it just kind of opened up my mind to be like, you know what, it is possible. And I'm gonna have a meeting with him and talk to him and see how he did it, how he does it. Because after seeing him, some other thoughts that came through. I was like, yeah, I can probably make this whole big thing happen. So it just kind of opened my mind to a lot of just different stuff moving forward in my real estate career.
I love that. So think about, what would you like your business to look like? And now Jay has seen it. He found his future at the bowling alley. I guess maybe you have to go to bowling alley to find it. I'm not sure.
It was weird, like I said, me limiting myself, but then getting the business that I just got with the Op City and the Ojo, and I can't keep up, but I can, but I can't. Can I do this? Can I be a big business? Going to the bowling alley. We're really putting everything on hold because it was my son's birthday. And then we go into the bowling alley. We didn't even bowl. So that was kind of like, well, daggone, we came all the way up and we didn't even bowl. They had 12 and 13 lanes open, but they wouldn't let us bowl because they said they didn't have any lanes. To 8 o'clock, we were like, okay. And then I saw that guy and I was like, is this a sign? So it opened my mind of what's possible for a Black man. Still to be able to make something happen. And then, like I said, I'm looking for the future, but he's younger than me. So I'm like, dang on, that's what I could have been. Well, let me see where I'm about to go. So it was just, I had a whole range of thought process, when I saw him, bald head, beard. I was like, this guy looks, is this my son? No.
I love it. Love it. Love it. All right, Miss Champel, can we hear you this week? If you come off mute, can we hear you?
Yes.
Yay!
Yes, you can.
Celebrate. What's your big win from the last week?
My big win would be my first listings under contract.
Yay!
So it was a big win for me.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. We lost Miss Melissa. I'm not sure. Melissa, did you run off?
Is this listing what you texted me about last night?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Cool. That's
There's
awesome.
Miss Melissa.
So
I was heating up food. I heard my name though.
What's your win from the last week?
I've been very busy. That's a win. So
Okay.
even if it doesn't turn into anything, I feel like I've learned a lot, finding my voice, learning how to be strict with these clients because they try to take advantage of
Yep.
you.
Teach people how to treat you. And I know, just so everybody knows, I think most everybody has heard the story. Melissa has a potential, she wrote a purchase agreement for somebody that's potentially not on the up and up. You got that covered with Scott, okay?
They don't know what to do either. No, but
Well, from what I understand from Scott this morning is that if the title company is willing to take the check, the title company is going to take the check, wait for the check to clear. I mean, it's up to the title company, I guess, is what I heard from Scott this morning.
yeah, but I haven't heard if they'll accept that. And basically the agent wanted me to call again and just see.
Is it
If
some
he-
kind of tornado day or something?
Yes,
No, that somebody
Yeah.
said in Bloomington and in Center Grove, and now I'm hearing it in Perry.
I'm hearing it in Greenfield.
Is it like
National-
a tornado awareness
yes,
day
awareness
or
day.
we have weather?
Oh,
No,
well, I've been
awareness.
watching news all day and they could have said that there is tornado awareness day. Like,
I don't know
heard-
what it
I heard
is.
it
I
here in
can't
Franklin
really
too.
hear, I can maybe hear it in Center Grove, but
I get it
don't
on
hear it around
Fridays. I'm not used to getting it on Tuesdays.
yeah.
yeah,
Woo!
I-
Yeah, usually it's Fridays at 11. That's just testing the thing. And this is obviously not Friday at 11. So
And it's a little bit longer than normal. All right, well, we'll just go through it. Anyways, you know, if you ever
Welcome
get
to the
something
Midwest.
and it feels uncomfortable, you have to listen to your intuition, but you have to remember that you still have a fiduciary duty because your
wow.
intuition doesn't negate that, right? So you have to make sure you ask yourself.
where we're at now is she said, reach out to him one more time. And then if not, then we'll have to do a mutual release. So I don't know if I have to do the mutual release or should she do that?
Well, if he's
I
not
don't know who
responding,
she
how are you
is.
going to get a mutual release? He won't sign it.
He's signing everything. He just is very adamant that he wants to send a personal check.
Oh,
And the title company won't accept the personal check.
No, they said a cashier's check, and I can't get him to understand that a cashier. I really don't want to talk to this guy anymore. It's really causing me anxiety. Like throw up. I feel so bad about the whole situation.
There's nothing to feel. Tell me, Melissa, what do you feel bad about?
Well, one, it's just too much for me to have to keep dealing with him when it's not going to turn into anything. And then if he scams people, I'll feel bad. That's just how I am.
do you know
He
what
can't
his,
scam anybody. I mean, nothing can happen.
right.
What could happen?
I don't know. I don't know how scams work.
Do you know what is his normal language? What is his home language?
He sounds African.
English or British, which is English.
Yeah, I have no idea.
like
Maybe
French or something?
ask him. What?
It's like,
I would say maybe ask him what's his base language and see if you can find an interpreter. And maybe there's just just a lack of communicate, just a confusion in words.
Maybe.
I mean, that's the only, because he's thinking personal check and you keep saying cashier's check and he may just not understand what that is. And so he's getting frustrated because he's trying to tell you that that's what he's sending and that's not, and so there's just a loss. Maybe there's just not there's a word that's not being translated well.
I
That's
worked with the Hispanic family and he had sold a home, was bringing cash. He was paying cash for a house. It took me about 2 weeks to understand that when I said cash, this gentleman thought he was carrying in a bag full of cash to closing. And when I told him it was going to be a wire transfer, he said, no, cash is king. And so it took me a while to make him understand that a wire transfer is cash, but he literally thought he was going to carry in $130,000 in cash to the meeting. So you
Now
might have it was more of
We
a
assume all
colloquial
the
than a,
time. We assume all
Yeah,
the
it was-
time that people know what
Yeah.
we mean, right? So that
Yeah.
may be it.
this was,
He told
this
me
was a-
that the bank is 5 hours from his house. He can't travel to COVID-19, so he can't go to the bank. He can't do a wire transfer, and he only has one check that left for the eternity, and that's the only one he'll send. That's like he's not going to go to the bank. It's 5 hours away, supposedly. So
Well, so I guess in the end, so the title company has said they won't accept that check.
I haven't. There's a bank and a bank people involved, and then there's a separate title company that isn't responding to anything.
Who chose the title company?
The bank did.
The bank chose the title
Because
company.
again, if you chose another one, they were going to charge you an extra fee.
Okay, so will the title company just reach out to the seller, to the buyer?
I could call them and ask them.
Yeah. Just say, maybe if he hears it from somebody else, then you'll find out the truth. And if you've taken that step, then you're going to have to tell him if the title company says they have to have certified funds. If you're not going to be able to submit certified funds, there's going to have to be a mutual release. Then you send the mutual release, and Melissa, you can draft it. It's super simple. It takes, less than a couple seconds to draft it, send it to him to sign, get Rhonda's signature on it, and then you're done.
Okay.
All right, let's jump into a purchase agreement and look where we can find opportunities for our clients. Does anybody have a hard time? Debbie, you had how many this weekend that you made good offers on and didn't quite win? Laura, what are you finding right now?
I'm still fine. Like, I just listed a house on Friday, and I had to go, and it's under contract already. And it's still like, buyers are trying to find every reason to get in there. Like, they're trying to find any way that they can give an advantage to the seller.
So how many of them sent you an as-is addendum?
I asked, my seller wanted to sell it as is, so all of them did.
Okay, well, I'm no as is, because as is not in my seller's best interest. As is all about the buyer. So I was not selling this one as is, and they kept sending me as is addendums, which was crazy. And honestly, the seller's decision between two ended up being one being an as is and one being an inspection limitation.
Well, and that's what the as is has. The as is addendum was rewritten this year, so it gives a little bit more favor to the seller. The buyer just can't walk away. And it can't be that the buyer has an inspection and then goes, well, we're going to go and try to ask for the stuff anyway, even though we set an as is, because that's what's been happening last year. Was they send an as is in there, and then the inspection report, and they're like, well, maybe they will do it because they don't want to lose the sale. So they go ahead and ask for repairs anyway. Now the as-is addendums, the seller and ask for repairs, the seller can walk away and keep the earnest money. They can withdraw the contract and keep the earnest money because the buyer did not stay true to the as-is condition.
But they still have the ability to walk away if there's an undisclosed item that they deem to be
correct, but it would be an undisclosed item. So it's not like the seller didn't know about it either. So it wasn't like the seller was. But at that time, then I can tell.
If the seller didn't know about it, it's undisclosed because they didn't put it on the disclosure. So it's still the buyer can, anyways. I like the inspection limitation that says I'm going to have an inspection. I'm not going to ask for any repairs unless something's huge and over. The one that we chose said $5,000. So that's I think the stronger way, but that's up to your buyers, right? Well, let's start in here with price. So how many escalation clauses did you get, Laura?
I got a couple this weekend. Yeah.
Do you like escalation clauses when you represent the seller?
I love it when I represent the seller. I hate it when I represent the buyer.
Well, I don't like it when I represent the seller because I want to know what your best offer is.
Well, so that's the different, depends on how the agent writes it.
Yeah.
I know what their best offer is.
My recommendation is, if at all possible, don't send an escalation clause that makes the listing agent do more work. They have to counter back in order to make that work. So my recommendation is that you tell your buyer, pick your price. What's the price that's most likely, if you were to lose it, if you offer 200 and it sells for 205, are you going to be upset? Right? They say yes, then would you like to offer 205? Figure out what that is. If you escalate, if somebody offers 205 and you escalate up to 205, which one are they going to choose?
The straight up offer 205.
The straight up offer at 205, right? So if you want to make the best, strongest offer, make the best, strongest offer. Not this is my offer, but I'll do this instead if I have to, right? You make your best, strongest offer. If you're in that multiple offer situation, earnest money, what are you seeing with earnest money, Laura?
Are getting better. They're giving at least a full %. They're getting the earnest money is getting higher because it helps the seller know that they're more serious about the house. They're less likely to walk away off little things if they've got more skin in the game.
Yes. So if your buyer wants to make a really strong offer, what should they do?
Make their earnest money higher.
Make their earnest money higher. And how do you have that conversation with the buyer? What does their earnest money apply towards?
All of their down payment, closing costs, fees, everything.
Right. So it's the money that they're going to spend anyhow. It's not extra money that they're having to spend. So if they're serious about this house and they have no intention of backing out, putting a high amount of earnest money here is going to be impactful to the seller. If you offered 205 for a house with $5,000 in earnest money and somebody else issued a $205,000 offer with $2,000 in earnest money, who wins? All other things being equal.
Probably the $5,000 earnest money.
The higher security for the seller, right? All other things being equal. So that's
Oh,
that's something to put in there.
Carla, I have a question. So I know standard is about 1%. You're saying you could ask for more, and your just opinion is like 2% a big enough increase or 3%? Just so we can.
It's the seller. It's up to the buyer, right? It's up to the buyer and what the buyer's comfortable with. Right? So again, I wouldn't go nuts. But I did have somebody wants to put $20,000 earnest money down. They were paying cash for the property. They want to make sure they win. They put $20,000 earnest money down. We had a conversation about the risk. I had to talk to them about risk. Sometimes things happen that you don't expect. And then we talked about risk, right? Because that was my fiduciary responsibility, was to talk about risk. I wasn't really uncomfortable with $20,000. It all worked out. So, it's the buyer's decision. I will tell you that when you get down here to line 39, I don't know about you, Laura, but I'm always going to choose that my brokerage gets to hold the earnest money. Because if there's ever a contest, I want to make sure that my managing broker has control of it. I know how my managing broker is going to handle their earnest account. I don't know how somebody else is going to. So if you represent the buyer, I would mark the selling broker. I don't think anybody's going to throw out your offer because you didn't let their managing broker hold the earnest money. I'm not sure people actually even think that through. So that's my take on that. What's yours, Laura?
I agree. The one I don't like is the title company holding it, just because it's a third party and it's forever. Even if both parties agree, it takes forever to get that earnest money released. So I prefer my brokerage holding it. I won't turn down an offer, or if that's the only thing that's marked differently, I won't argue it, but I prefer my own brokerage to hold it.
All right. So we're on agreement there. Okay. The next one, obviously here, we're talking about, I had a condo. Okay. I had a condo and I put in there no FHA, no VA. I got 4 FHA offers. So then I changed the agent to agent comments and said that the only way we would consider an FHA offer is if we had a letter from the lender, the loan officer, indicating that this property qualified for an FHA. They kept calling me and wanting me to know, did it qualify? I don't know if it qualified. Was it my job to find out if it qualified as the listing agent?
No.
Why would you call and ask the listing agent to verify something if you're in a multiple offer situation? Right? No. And not one single person that submitted an FHA offer got a letter from their lender saying that it would qualify. I had one lender call me, wouldn't put it in writing, that they thought they could do a spot approval on it. And I was supposed to pick that, right?
Not good enough. Nope.
Again, think this through. Also, don't call the listing agent. Don't text, and for goodness sakes, don't email, especially over a weekend. If you have a question, pick up the phone and call. If they don't want to talk to you, they may text you back or email you back, but make the phone call. It was just amazing, the things that happened this last weekend. All right, conventional, insured conventional, that's the preference right now, unfortunately. Right? If you have a buyer, they're having a hard time winning and they are in an FHA approval, talk to the lender. Is there anything you could do? Right? Is there anything you could do to get them into an insured conventional product? What do you got to say on that, Laura?
I know that there are several lenders that will. I know people like doing FHAs because it's only 3.5% down payment. But I know there are lenders out there that do a 3% insured conventional. So The interest rates might be a little bit different, and sometimes it depends on the credit score of the buyer, but it's worth the effort if that is available to that buyer, or if there's a way to work around it. I also know there are some loan officers are able to do an 80-20 conventional. So, I mean, it's a fully conventional then, but it's a dual loan. Like, so you're getting the loan for the 80% and then you're getting a loan for the 20% down payment, but it does work. So I would just always ask, if you're a buyer's agent and that they're FHA right now, I would definitely ask and talk to the lender and see if there is a possibility to getting them onto some sort of a conventional type of product.
Or shop another lender. If that lender tells you no, shop another lender and see if they could get another answer on that. All right, Laura, what's your feeling on line 62? Putting in a percentage on there. No, not 62, 63.
Yeah.
Interest rate not to exceed blank.
I don't like to do it as well. I like to do it as a buyer's agent. I don't really care to see it as a seller's agent. I don't know if anybody actually ever pays attention to it, honestly, because that's going to save my buyer. If with interest rates right now, with interest rates, the possibility of them going up and up and up, if you don't put a price APR in there that it can't go higher than, your buyer is going to get stuck at whatever interest rates available. And if it's more than what they were qualified for, then you're going through all of this, possibly can't qualify the buyer anymore because the interest rate threw their ratios off. So
be careful what you put here though.
Yeah, you need to be careful.
I had an offer that said 3.5.
Well, we're already past that.
Like, I mean, what do you do with that? What do you do with that, right? Yeah. I don't know what to do with that. So be careful what you put there. I agree with Laura. If your buyer's put something in there to protect your buyer, but be really careful what you put in there. Have a conversation with the lender. Find out what would be outrageous. Some buyers can't qualify if it goes up a certain percentage. Then by all means, put that in there and be honest, but be really careful what you put there. And right now, points is right.
I don't know if anybody's paying points at all anyway.
I think the interest rate, as the interest rates go up, people will probably start paying points, but
right.
You're in a multiple offer situation, you just probably want to not let somebody know that you have extra money. What does that say?
Then they can afford
you put
more
points there, you've got extra money. Where should you be putting your extra money right now in a multiple offer situation?
The purchase price.
Appraisal gap. Yeah.
Or the appraisal gap, right.
What do you put if you don't want to put it? Do you have to put a percentage in there?
Best available.
Best available. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. But that's the problem though. That's the possible issue right now is best available might go up between the time you start with your buyers and they get pre-approved. And by the time, 45 days, 60 days after they've gotten their pre-approval letter, the interest rates go up. If you put best available, whenever you write whatever APR is at that moment, but
whenever they lock in, yeah.
But if that interest rate raises like more than 2% or something, or 2 points or whatever, it might throw them off, and they may not qualify for that much house. They could probably still qualify, but it'd be for something lower. So you just really have to be careful. Best would be difficult.
And in communication with the lender, talk to the lender on the phone, have a conversation with your lender before you write offers. All right. Time for obtaining financing. How long should it take for your buyer to fill out an application after the offer's accepted?
1 day.
1 day, not 7, by the way. And for goodness sakes, don't put in there already applied, because you didn't already apply. The house hasn't been under contract yet. You can't apply until you have a property. Right? So 1 day, maybe 2, right? If it's a Sunday or a Saturday, maybe put 2 days in there because it doesn't say business, or put 1 business day, something, make that a little number. Approval, what should approval be?
30 days.
Who can tell
the lender? You should know what the lender says.
ask the lender, right? What should I put in here? Because what happens if you put multiple offers, okay? You win, and 15 minutes after you win, somebody makes a cash offer over your price. What's the seller hoping all along? That you blow it, right? They're hoping that your buyer blows it so that they can get this cash, right? They can get this higher amount. If you put in 30 days here and your lender can't close you until day 35, what happens?
You reneged on the contract and it's
You're
no
out of
longer valid.
contract, right? They can terminate they can terminate the agreement. They can void the agreement and then move forward with their cash buyer. So you
Well,
have
and
to
they can also keep your earnest money because you the one that didn't if you represent the buyer, can't they keep your earnest money because you didn't?
no, because it's a financing contingency.
Financing
Okay.
contingency.
So no, they can't keep your earnest money, but they can void the contract. So line 80, you need to talk to the lender. What should this be? And give yourself a little bit of a cushion. Now, let's go down here. We're going to pick a closing date. Let's say we have to do an amendment for a closing date, and that closing date is going to move us outside of the range where line 80 is out of line. What do we need to do on our amendment?
That you're also
Adding the
change
date.
line 80.
Yeah, so you got to change line 80 to add the days in. Okay. So that's the way that works. All right. So your closing date, again, don't just talk to the lender. Who else should you talk to before you write an offer with a closing date on here?
Title company.
Okay. Who's the most important person to talk to?
Client?
The listing agent. Don't you want to know what the seller wants to see here? I had in the agent to agent comments that we could not close between April 7th and April 23rd. Half the offers had April 15th on it for the deadline or for the closing date. Read the agent to agent comments. If you're not going to call the listing agent, then at least read the agent to agent comments, right? I mean, like we're trying to we have to put the best offer out there. And I got offers that I couldn't even consider, right? Because they were, Laura, yeah.
Sorry, this is a side note, but it goes back with the BLC because I had two different agents from the same brokerage. Two different agents try to schedule a showing through showing time. And the showing time kept it's on Broker Bay. It's listed on Broker Bay. You could click the thing through the BLC on Broker Bay. I'm not doing anything through showing time. And I did make the effort to try to call that agent. The agents that I was told it was one brokerage. When I called the phone number, it was the front desk of a different brokerage. And I'm like, so I went to the internet to find this person. Couldn't find any information. I didn't know who to call, so I just left it. Read the BLC. Yes, there are some brokerages that are still using showing time. If they go through showing time, use showing time. If they don't, use Broker Bay. But read. It's not my job to hound you down so you have your buyer show my property. I don't have to. I've got plenty of other people who are showing my property. So that's just a side note. Sorry.
No, it's a great one. Because this is all what it takes to get our buyers to take care of our buyers, right? All right. So closing date, talk to the listing agent, right? If the listing agent says the seller doesn't have any requirements, then talk to the lender, right? The lender's the one that's going to be most important here. And then I've always been taught that line 87 should say 3 days after issuance of closing disclosure. I can't think of any other reason to put something else on here. I'm not sure why they just don't fill that in for us because I can't think of any other reason, but that's just what it is. All right. This settlement fee or closing fee, how much is this? Does anybody know?
About $300 to $500.
Yeah. So if you're writing a multiple offer and your client has a little bit of money to play with, who should be paying this?
The buyer.
The buyer. Okay. All right.
I'm actually glad you said that because I was going over the listing contract. I was like, I don't know what this fee is or how much it is, but I noticed that the buyer said that they would pay it for my seller. and I thought it
Yeah,
was shared.
if you do a seller's net sheet from the Title Alliance app, it just calculates it in there. It's based off of no, that one's not based off the price, is it, Laura?
No, that's just
The one.
flat fee.
It's the one that's on your, no, that's the one. It's on the one that's on your Title Alliance disclosure. No, that's not the one either. That's the
No,
owner's
it's
policy.
like the flat fee for them just to hold the closing. It's not for
And-
them doing any of the title work or any of the lien
But it's
stuff.
the filing fees that the state requires and all of that. Okay, it's just a few $100s. If the buyer has a little bit of cash to play with, this could make the difference, right? Again, you have 205, you have a $205,000 offer. One has the seller paying it, one has the buyer paying it, and one has it shared equally. You're gonna pick the one where the buyer's paying it, right? Because that's a little bit of extra money for your seller, all other things being equal. Obviously, if you're making a contingent offer, you're just running uphill. I don't even know what to say about that right now. Possession. Again, before you fill this out, what do you need to do?
Call the listing agent. What does
Call
the
the
seller
listing
want?
What do they want? Would it make a difference if I hate post-possession closing personally, as a buyer. I hate to think that somebody's going to live in the house I just bought, but if that's what it takes for me to get the house, call the listing agent. If the seller had an extra 24 or 48 hours after closing, would that be helpful? Would that make a difference for them? Find these things out, fill it out. If you're giving post-possession closing and you're in a multiple offer situation, make this line 115 0. You've just given them extra days. You can't ask them to pay for it, right? But then this number should still be a high number to prevent them from holding over. All right. Survey, if your buyer wants a survey, that's fine. Who should pay for it in a multiple offer situation? Buyer. Flood area. Is it in a flood area? If that's a concern, figure that out before you write the offer. As a listing agent, I want to see this may not, because I don't want the buyer, I want the smallest number of contingencies that the buyer can back out for, right? Same thing here, building use limitations. How many days should this be in a multiple offer situation?
5 or less. 0. Oh, sorry.
It's a contingency, right? This is saying that if the buyer hasn't looked at the HOA documents and they don't know if this is going to meet their needs or not, so they get days to terminate. Does that make your offer strong if your buyer can terminate for something? No, so I should say 0. If there's a concern about it, what do you need to do before you write the offer? Vet that out. Get the HOA documents. Find out if there's a concern about a fence or a
Storage barn.
or a home business or something, whatever it might be. Find out. Homeowners insurance, just make this a small number. All this is a phone call from the buyer to their insurance agent, right? Should be a really small number. Inspections. We already talked about as is a little bit. I personally am not a fan of as is. Laura doesn't mind the as is because of the difference they made. But here's the thing. How do you know what the listing agent wants?
Call them.
Call them. Would the seller like to see an as is addendum? If somebody would have called me and asked, would the seller like to see an as is addendum? I'm going to say to them, it would probably be better if there was a limitation on inspection items, repair items, because that's what the sellers and I had already talked about. But nobody asked me that question. They just assumed and sent as is addendums. I'd already talked to my clients about as is addendums, and they were already preconceived to not want anything that had as is in it, because that's what I had. That was, as their representative, that's my opinion. So that's what I had shared with them. So that being said, ask the question. But should you ever recommend to the buyer that they not get an inspection? No. If your buyer is adamant to not get an inspection, what should you do?
They should have to sign a separate form with you.
Get it in writing. Absolutely, Joni. Make them sign it. They got to cover yourself there. All right. So how long should your inspection period be?
14 days.
Well, if you write an offer and it's 14 days and somebody else writes an offer and it's 5 days, who's going to win?
5 days.
So not necessarily. How are you going to find out what you should put there?
Oh, call the listing agent and see what they prefer.
Actually, you're going to call your inspector and find out what they can do.
How quickly can they do it?
Yeah. And then put the shortest time plus 1 day is my rule of thumb. If they tell me 5 days, I'm going to put 6. If they tell me that they're setting 14 days out, they're setting 14 days out, right? And now I've got to put 15 days in there. So Joni, it could be 14 days, but I'm going to find out what that is. I'm going to make that the shortest time possible. Okay. And again, here, I always make this like 5 days. If that comes back and there's mold or something, I know it's going to take me 5 days to get somebody out there. What do you put on that line, Laura?
Yeah, usually like either 5 or 7, especially like when inspections were going out 14 days at best, then I knew that this was going to go longer too, just because there's just so many people and there's only few people who are qualified to make these types of assessments.
Awesome. All right. Home
Can I ask a
warranty.
real quick question?
Yes.
When you said if they are wanting to waive the inspection, you have them sign a form. Is there a particular form for that, or is it just something you?
No, I just make them write it to me in writing in an email.
Okay.
And then I had one that happened, and then I printed that email and then I attached in the generic documents in Command.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Put it in your command so you remember it later on, because it could be 2 years before they sue you. You want to make sure you have access. Use Command documents as your filing cabinet. I put all of my rejected offers in there in one document. I combine them all in one document and put them in there along with my spreadsheet where I did the analysis on it. So if anybody ever came back and said that we weren't fair in how we handled the offers, it's there. That's my filing cabinet. I want that all in there. All right, home warranty. This was an interesting one I had never actually thought about, but I had somebody that was limiting the inspection and was getting a home warranty, but the buyer is ordering it, the buyer is paying for it. Made my clients feel very good. Because if they were getting a home warranty, they felt like that they weren't going to be as worried on their inspection. And that was something that came from my seller's perspective, not mine. And I thought that was interesting. So if your buyer wants a home warranty and they're going to pay for it, fill this in. That sends a message to the seller that, we're getting a home warranty. We're not going to be worried about the inspection. Yes, Laura.
Plus, on a home warranty, they if you ever had to make a call or a claim on a home warranty, they want to know if you because they will want, especially like on a furnace or water heater, they want to know what the condition was when you got it. Because if your client does waive it and then gets a home warranty thing that's going to cover it, the home warranty company will most likely deny any claim because they can't guarantee what the condition was when you bought it. So consider that. And also for our own CYA, you can have a home warranty program, whoever pays for it, buyer, seller, or you. It reduces your E&O insurance liability in half.
Well, so not only that, if you use America's Preferred Home Warranty at the bottom of the sheet, if they decide they do not want a home warranty and they sign that sheet that you offered it to them and they don't want it, America's Preferred Home Warranty is going to cover your deductible or part of your deductible. I can't remember what that is, but I think it's either your part of your deductible or your full deductible if you ever have an issue. So always get that signed. If you represent a buyer, you should always get that America's Preferred Home Warranty document signed, whether they want a warranty or not, so that you have that coverage for yourself. All right. Should you ever submit an offer that doesn't have has or not applicable? Should you ever submit an offer that says has not here? It's a trick question.
I don't think you should, but I don't know.
We should be providing that, shouldn't we?
Yes, it should be there. So you should not, you should, if it's in the BLC, print it, get it signed. If it's not in the BLC, what should you do?
Call the listing agent.
Call listing agent and ask for it. So the reason why it's a trick question is the only time you would ever mark has not here is if you've called the listing agent, it's not in the BLC, the listing agent didn't call you back, you have a deadline to submit it, right? That's the only time it should say has not. And then when you submit it, I would put in there, I called you, I couldn't find it in the BLC and the supplements. I called you and I just wanted to get you this offer. So if you send over that sales disclosure, we'll get it back to you as quickly as possible, right? And amend our offer. All right, title, again, we go to the owner's policy. If you're writing a really strong offer and your buyer has a little bit of money, what should you do with it? Who should pay for the owner's policy?
The buyer.
The buyer. Lender's policy. Who should always pay for the lender's policy in this market?
The buyer.
The buyer, right? Title company. If the listing agent has put in agent to agent comments that they've pre-ordered the title, who should choose the title company?
Seller.
The seller, right? I always want my title company, but I am not going to jeopardize my buyers. Again, all things being equal, two matching offers. One has the buyer wanting to choose the title company and one having the buyer letting the seller use the title company they've already started with. Which one are they going to pick? The one that, you know, that benefits, that is on the seller side. All right, taxes. Here's the big one. All right, Laura, what you see? Because this is where the creativeness is coming out thick and thick all over the place.
I've seen it both ways. I laughed this weekend because for whatever reason, somehow my sellers have extremely low taxes on the property. So the offer that we had number one checked, where the buyer will assume and pay all taxes due by May 22nd, or May of 2022. But it was like, it ended up being like $30.
Did make a difference.
It was like, okay, great. You saved us a whole bunch of money there. But, you know, in a more normal situation, that's huge, because that means, you know, a year to a year and a half worth of taxes are coming back towards the seller rather than the buyer.
Yes. And it doesn't technically cost the buyer anything right now.
Right.
Right. So let's say, for instance, that the taxes are $2,000 a year and we're closing on June 30th, this because I want easy math. That's $3,000, right, to the buyer or to the seller. But the buyer doesn't have to pay that until their escrow pays it in November. So this is a really good way for a buyer that doesn't have a lot of cash to use for an appraisal gap to make up the difference. If you have represented a buyer, look at your closing statement. You're going to see where they get a credit from the seller for last year's taxes plus the prorated taxes for this year. If you add those two together, that's just the difference. They won't get that credit, but they don't have to bring that money to closing.
But then
Unless
don't
that
they
credit was
have-
offsetting other
I mean,
things.
then isn't their escrow off then?
No,
then
because they don't, that money doesn't go into their escrow. The lender's already taken care of that. They're getting a credit at closing. That credit at closing usually covers part of their closing costs, different things. Shoot, I've had buyers get money back at closing because of that credit, right? That didn't go to the lender. The escrow account doesn't change at all. The lender's still going to pay the taxes in May and November like they always were.
Does the title company figure that out for you?
Taxes to pay. But they're
They're-
gonna have,
Their mortgage would then go up because their escrow account would be wiped out. I don't understand.
Their mortgage isn't going to be any different. The lender's not get the escrow when the seller gives that credit at closing. That money is not going into the escrow account.
but how do those taxes get paid?
Yeah, the
The
buyer
lender
has to
pays
pay
them.
Who?
I'm sorry,
The
what?
lender pays that. The lender because what happens at closing? What is a prepaid? Tell me what is a prepaid? If you have a buyer with a loan, what is a prepaid?
Is their taxes and insurance to set up their escrow account for their new lender, their new
Right.
bank. Okay.
Yes. And that money is not coming from the seller. Where's that money coming from?
It's coming from the buyer.
It's coming from the buyer. They're already putting it in there.
So you're saying that the lender would already account for that $3,000 in November
Yes,
If
they
they're
know
gonna
they're gonna have
owe.
to write that check, yeah.
So
But then that's
otherwise,
gonna
they.
If
But
you're
mine
closing on
changes
May
every year.
9th, then the title company may pay the May payment, but if you're closing right now, the title company is not gonna pay the May payment, the lender's gonna pay the May payment.
Right, but that's gonna make, you're gonna have more money in your escrow account, which is going to make your payment higher.
Well, you could, who could you ask to find out if this is, well, the fiscal dollar amount impact on their escrow account? Who could you ask that question if that was a concern of the buyer?
You would talk to the lender because the lender would have to know that they're not going to get that credit for those
Correct.
taxes.
Right,
So
but
that
they
means
don't,
they're
but the lender doesn't get that credit anyways. That credit goes on the closing statement. It doesn't go to the lender. It goes to the buyer. It's a credit that the buyer gets at closing.
Right, but somebody's got to pay these taxes.
The lender is,
The lender pays the taxes whether they get this credit or not. It's no
I
different
know,
from a lender's
but
perspective.
they've got it. The lender's not going to just pay these taxes out of the goodness of their heart.
they're
gonna-
not, it's
Oh, they're
it's
gonna
being
pay it
paid
out
out
of
of
the
the
escrow.
prepaid.
Out of
What?
the prepaids in the escrow account.
Okay, so.
Right,
I have
but
a
then the
question.
buyer has to fund those prepaids.
They
The
would
buyer
anyway.
is going to fund those prepaids no matter what.
The,
Okay.
the credit, the tax credit that you get from the seller does not go towards the prepaids. It goes towards what's left that the buyer has to bring to closing.
Okay,
So the
okay,
prepaids are already there, no matter if that credit's there or not.
okay.
Who figures that number out? The title
Well, you
company?
can figure
or
that
the
number
lender?
out. You can figure that number out, or the lender can help you. You guys had to do it for your licensing exam. You're gonna take the prorated 360 days, take the amount of taxes divided by 360 days times however many days between January 1st and closing, and add it to last year's taxes.
Okay.
All right, so quickly here, HOA condominium association. I saw a lot of this, already have. I liked that. 0 days, not good, right? 0 days said they wouldn't give me any chance to do it. Already have, whatever that is. Also, if you have the listing, just remember that you need to make sure that the seller is getting these HOA documents, that you're not just pulling them off the Chicago Title, because what happens to the ones that are on Chicago Title's website?
Never get updated.
It may not be updated. That's correct. All right. Lastly, we got 3 minutes. Things and further conditions. Appraisal gap. The appraisal gap language is in the PC library in the folder called Winning Multiple Offers. So there's some very specific appraisal gap language in there. This is where you're going to limit your inspection repair items. So what dollar amount is the buyer comfortable covering on any repairs? And this is what you want to see here, unless you've done the as is. What else do you see in further conditions, Laura?
I'm trying to think. Those are the two most common ones, and those are the ones that I write in there myself for my buyers.
What I didn't like is somebody wrote me, this is a legal binding contract, and somebody wrote in here, if necessary, the buyer is willing to do this. If necessary, the buyer is willing to do this. No. Joni's shaking her head. She grew up in a law firm too. No.
Because who decides what's necessary? It's arbitrary. No,
Remember this, if there's any ambiguity, it is going to be written in favor of the seller because you're the buyer's agent writing it. So you do not get the deference. The seller gets the deference on anything that's ambiguous. And write as little as possible. You are not an attorney.
yes, we are not attorneys. So the more we write in there, the more we're writing a contract, a legal contract, and we are not legal contract writers. So keep it
None
as
of us are licensed, to my
I
knowledge.
have a question.
None of us are licensed to practice law in the state of Indiana.
right.
None of us. I'm pretty sure of it. All right. We got just a minute or two. Was this helpful?
Yes, but I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so with the HOA documents, do I ask my sellers to give them to me and then I scan and upload them to email? How do I get them to the other side?
You'll get it you just scan it email it to them and then say, in accordance with line, whatever of the agreement, whatever line that is, line 315 of the agreement, attached are the HOA documents from the seller.
There are some times where the sellers may not have them because most sellers just don't think about it. I would recommend that they go check their HOA website and then they grab it and then they send it to you. I don't want to be the one grabbing it from the HOA site because I could have gotten it from the wrong HOA site. I don't want that
Okay.
responsibility. That's from the seller to me. So
That's managing broker instructions. There is that your seller gets the HOA documents. Now,
Seller gets the HOA documents and give them to me to give over to the other
Mhm.
side.
now I will tell you, if my seller has a hard time, they give me a phone number, they can't get somebody to answer the phone for them, then I represent the seller and I'm going to vet them out. But I'm going to have, but here's what I'm going to have is I'm going to have the HOA people send it to my seller and have my seller forward it to me, or I'm going to make sure we're both copied on it.
Okay.
And then you can go ahead and upload your HOA documents. You can upload those, right?
Mhm.
So you
I
can,
uploaded the ones from Chicago Title, but I'm going to make sure that they're the right ones by having the seller get the right ones.
right, because when you go for the listing, your seller can email you those HOA documents. And then when you create the listing, you can upload the HOA documents.
You can. You can upload them, and in the agent to agent comments, you can say seller provided HOA documents
Right.
in supplements. Or if you pull them down off Chicago Title, I just upload them so people can see. Like, for instance, there was no rentals in this condo and I wanted them to see that, but I didn't actually have it back from my seller yet. So. All right, guys. I hope this was helpful. I did record it. I'm going to put it in the folder or the PC library resources too.